In Pretenders tonight, a very Palin Christmas. Sarah Palin dropped by Fox and Friends to promote her manifesto on Christmas purity. She brought a treat better than Christmas cookies: family photos.
In Skagway, Alaska, a little gold mining town where my dad was teaching school and coaching basketball, and that's my older brother and older sister. And then that was on a college break. We were all in college at the same time, my siblings and I, home for an alumni basketball game in Alaska.
That's really the key, isn't it? As we look at another picture of your family. There they are.
Not so fast, Palin. We learned some important lessons on Monday about all the Arbor activity in those pictures. I even had to break out the good book. Not hers, of course.
All right, folks, welcome back. That was Joy Reid on MSNBC filling in on the Ed Show. And in the process of attacking Palin, as she disrespectfully calls the governor, the former governor, let's let you hear the cut 25, then we'll go to Noel Sheppard.
Certain parts of the Bible also appear to preach against, let's say, Christmas trees. Here's Jeremiah 10:10. It reads, "For the practices of the peoples are worthless. They cut a tree out of the forest, and a craftsman shapes it with his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails, so it will not totter. Like a scarecrow in a cucumber field, their idols cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot walk. Do not fear them. They can do no harm, nor can they do any good." Now, a Christmas purist wouldn't want us straying from the Bible on Christmas, would she? Everyone celebrates Christmas in their own special way. That could mean being treeside with the family or even profiting off your call-to-in commercialism. But if Sarah Palin wants us to believe there's only one true meaning of Christmas, she can keep on pretending.
All right, welcome in our friend Noel Sheppard on Malsberg's Media Madness. It's Friday, the last Friday, Noel, of 2013. Who would have thunk it? And Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir. You as well.
And this, of course, Noel is the associate editor of Newsbusters.org. So explain this to me. As you wrote at Newsbusters, Joy Reid is trashing Sarah Palin for having a Christmas tree on Christmas?
It really boggles the mind. I mean, the hatred that the liberal media has for and is willing to display towards former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin absolutely knows no bounds. I mean, what was amazing about this segment is Joy Reid has no idea what she's talking about biblically. First of all, Jeremiah, which she was quoting from, is the Old Testament. It's before Christ was born. So how could the Old Testament be referring to Christmas trees when Christ hadn't even been born yet? Extraordinary. Jeremiah was also talking about how heathens were chopping down trees and turning them into idols. That's what that chapter was addressing. And they were saying, and Jeremiah was saying, you should not do this. So it's the whole thing. It's so dishonest. It's so disingenuous. But it's MSNBC, and you're allowed to say anything that you want about a conservative, especially Sarah Palin, on that channel with total impunity. You don't have to have any of the facts right, and there's going to be people that are applauding, and you just have to wonder. I mean, you know, when is Phil Griffin going to get a grip on? I mean, they've hired all of these people who have very, very little experience on television.
She was filling in. She was filling in on Scarborough this morning. Morning Joe.
She was filling in for Scarborough.
Well, she was in there with them. They had all different people. Joe and Mika were not there, and she was one of the people there sitting on the panel. I think it was her first time they were alluding to that she had been there.
It's a very, very hateful person. Who, I mean, you know, what's extraordinary now is that what Griffin has been doing is he's been taking these lesser-known folks who are exclusively opinionators and who are conservative haters and putting them into prominent positions. And I mean, what's extraordinary here is MSNBC just moves further and further to the left and further towards irrelevancy. I guess Griffin wants to become totally irrelevant.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he must be taking his marching orders from somebody. And as you've pointed out in columns and stories and on this show, time and time again, we're talking about NBC news here, and we're talking about NBC News correspondents who have shows on MSNBC. Why they'd want to tarnish further and continue to tarnish that product, that legendary product with the Al Sharptons and the Ed Schultzes and the Rachel Maddows. I don't know, but his bosses must be checking off on it.
Must be. Ratings are down significantly this year. He's getting his you-know-what kicked by Fox. I don't know. It really it boggles the mind, and why Andrea Mitchell and Chuck Todd in particular want to be associated with this, and why does Joe Scarborough want to be associated with it? Now, of course, he positions himself as the lone conservative or right-of-center voice, and it's nice that exists, but you really want to be associated with this vile network, and I guess, my answer is no.
Well, let me ask you a question about something that I don't know if it came since we talked last week or it was my miss, and that is the future of Meet the Press and the Washington Bureau at NBC, and the talk that possibly even Joe and Mika might replace that show and David Gregory and Meet the Press altogether on Sundays.
I have a hard time believing that. This is a long-standing, this is the longest-running television show in the world. Are you really going to get rid of it or change the format such that it's now co-hosts? No, if right now, look, this program didn't have a problem when it was Tim Russert. David Gregory's the problem. Okay, I don't think that you go to a co-host format, and if you do, I think that the format should be. Mika's role on Morning Joe, and I love Mika. Mika's role on Morning Joe is mostly to read the news. She's really not there to act as a counterpoint to Joe's conservatism and Joe's right-of-center positions. If they're really looking for someone to be a counterpoint, I think it would have to be, and this is not an offense to Mika, she really is there mostly to read news. So I don't know whether that's the answer. I think that the answer is it's clearly David Gregory is not working for whatever reason. At this point in time, Bob Schieffer, and you can't say it's an age issue, because Schieffer right now is running away with the ratings
and he's
on
much
Sunday
older.
mornings.
Yeah.
And he's in his early to mid 70s, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
so it's not an age issue.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We're talking to Noel Sheppard here on the Steve Malzberg Show, and let's talk a little bit about Duck Dynasty and how Jesse Jackson has now kind of entered into the fray. You write about today about an ABC story that Jesse Jackson says Phil Robertson is more offensive than Rosa Parks' bus driver. Now, let's not forget, Rosa Parks' bus driver, made Rosa Parks move to the back of the bus during a time when blacks, suffered horribly with civil rights and Jim Crow.
And then had her arrested.
And what Phil Robertson said, and again, on the black issue, we have, what he said about blacks, and I've prefaced this every time I've said it. I don't defend it. I don't approve of it. But he was saying, when I stood next to these people in the fields, I didn't hear them complain. They seemed happy. He was giving a personal observation based on his experience. How on earth? Here goes Jackson again, comparing something to Rosa Parks that has no significance to Rosa Parks, diminishes Rosa Parks, the way he talked about Emmett Till and compared him to Trayvon Martin and vice versa. It's abhorrent.
It's abhorrent. And basically what we've got here is one of the two primary race hustlers in our nation, the other now having his own show on MSNBC, if you can imagine. Basically, once again, trying to shake down, and you have to figure that's what this is going to be about. This is going to be some kind of an ultimatum or an extortion that we expect, and we know that Sharpton and Jackson have done this for many, many years. I haven't looked recently. I think that Jackson is worth like $50 million. That may be high. I wrote an article about Jackson and Sharpton, I don't know, about a month or two ago, and I got both of their net worths. I seem to recall that Sharpton was about $5 million and Jesse was way over that. But anyway, this is what he's going to do. He's going to walk in there. Now, what's interesting is he apparently gave a 72-hour window for his request, and the request came on Monday the 23rd. So I've seen nothing that's transpired since. The request should have expired sometime yesterday. So conceivably, A&E said, we don't need to speak to Reverend Jackson. And maybe Cracker Barrel, he made the same request to Cracker Barrel. They said, we don't need to speak to you. Who are you? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if that's what some of these companies would do when they're about to be shaken down by charlatans like Sharpton and Jackson? Say, we don't need to meet with you.
I don't know who the companies think that Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton influence or have power over. As a percentage of the black community, I could only guess, but I would assume it's a very small percentage. If Jesse Jackson said and Al Sharpton said, you know, we're going to boycott sponsors who are A&E, you think these sponsors are going to feel it? I mean, give me a break, especially if you compare it to the other way. You know, if response.
You live in the New York metro area, so I'm sure that you've got many friends that are black, conservative, and liberal. I bet you virtually none of them says that they support Jackson or Sharpton at this point. My black friends all say the same thing, conservative and liberal. They say, I think these guys have been terrible for civil rights in this nation.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody other than MSNBC that supports Al Sharpton at this point.
It all comes back to MSNBC, doesn't it?
Well, and I wanted to finish up on the Meet the Press issue.
Yo, I'm not saying I'm laughing. It's funny, but
yeah. No, I mean, is it possible that Meet the Press's failings since Russert passed away is that they've become MSNBC? Russert didn't have a lot of MSNBCers on his show. Now he'd bring on Andrea Mitchell. Certainly. He'd bring on Chuck Todd, certainly. I don't recall, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't recall Rachel Maddow being a frequent guest of Tim Russert.
No. And of course she wasn't a fixture on MSNBC at that point, in all fairness, but you're right. I mean, it was newsmakers, it was mainstream, for whatever that's worth, journalists or commentators.
There'd be liberal commentators and there'd be conservative commentators. It would be more liberal, typically.
Right.
But it wouldn't be these flamethrowers.
Right. No, that's a great point. If Al Sharpton's been on Meet the Press.
Al Sharpton's been on numerous times, and he's a flamethrower.
To weigh in on legitimate political issues of the day. I mean, that's insane.
Is it possible that Meet the Press's demise is because Gregory is continuing to bring on flamethrowers from MSNBC? And I say the answer is yes.
All right, that's very interesting. All right, let's go to Greenwald here, and of the Guardian, Glenn Greenwald, and I want you to hear cut 26. You wrote about this. You provided the video at newsbusters.org. Let's listen to what he said. He's the guy, of course, who brought Snowden out and helped Snowden reveal all the secrets, and he got accused of defending Snowden and shilling for Snowden, and he had a response on MSNBC. Cut 26.
What do you say to your critics who say that you've become more of a spokesman for Edward Snowden?
I think that's ludicrous, is what I say to that. Every journalist has an agenda. We're on MSNBC now, where close to 24 hours a day, the agenda of President Obama and the Democratic Party are promoted, defended, glorified. The agenda of the Republican Party is undermined. That doesn't mean that the people who appear on MSNBC aren't journalists. They are. I think every journalist has a viewpoint.
And 27, for good measure. Let's say hit cut 27.
Sure, I do defend him, just like people on MSNBC defend President Obama and his officials and Democratic Party leaders 24 hours a day.
Not everyone on MSNBC
I don't make any bones
does
about
that 24 hours a day.
No, not everybody, but a lot of people on MSNBC do.
I mean, wow. And that poor girl.
This was really quite delicious. It would have only been better if he had been speaking to an Al Sharpton or a Chris
That's
Matthews
what I was going to say. I've never
Rachel.
seen Kristen Welker. She obviously was filling in, but wow.
Kristen Welker is one of the NBC White House correspondents.
Really?
Not the chief correspondent. That's Chuck Todd.
Okay.
But she's one of their White House correspondents. MSNBC uses her regularly as just someone standing in front of the White House giving an update about what just happened today.
Gotcha.
So you get the sense that they're trying to test her as a substitute host, because they're constantly trying to bring in these folks who have no background in hosting TV shows, just new young faces that they're going to bring in. And she obviously was a little bit offended by this, but he was right on. I mean, when he said not everybody, yeah, you're right, not everybody. The only person who doesn't is Scarborough.
Yeah, for the most part, you're right. I mean,
it was really, it's a marvelous snippet. Yeah, I loved it.
It was. Well, kudos to you for picking it out, and kudos to you for writing all the great stuff you do at Newsbusters and the whole crew there. We'll speak to you hopefully next week. Have a great New Year's Eve. Be safe, and a great 2014 for everyone.
Thank you, sir. You too.
All right. Noel Sheppard, ladies and gentlemen, Newsbusters.org, Associate Editor here on the Steve Malzberg Show. In the next hour, we're going to be joined by Eleanor Clift. We're going to be joined by Mike Baker, former CIA covert agent and host of America Declassified, great show that's on the Travel Channel. And we're going to talk to him about the Al-Qaeda captive, the U.S. captive, who made a videotape that was played around yesterday. We played it on this show, as a matter of fact. So a lot straight ahead if you keep it where it is on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.